There are many scientists and engineers that have gone unnamed despite their amazing work and discoveries. One such scientist, engineer, philosopher, and political activist was named Narcissus Monturiol. Monturiol made the first great discoveries in submarine engineering. Until recently, there were few who knew of Monturiol, and only now is he beginning to acquire the recognition he deserves for his remarkable work. Although Monturiol's dream and genius were temporarily lost, scholars have begun to uncover and reclaim the ideas that he had once designed and engineered, so that the legacy of his scholar will not be forgotten. There is no doubt that Monturiol was a scholar, successfully studying in many fields. In 1834, he attended a university in Spain and earned a degree in philosophy. With a constant drive for knowledge, Monturiol went on to study medicine. By 1845, Monturiol had transferred schools to Barcelona, Spain to study law and be part of the tumultuous political action taking place in conjunction with the Civil War. There is no doubt that his work ethic transferred to his efforts on underwater navigation projects later in life. Living in Barcelona during the height of political unrest created a perfect storm for Monturiol's dream to take hold. Barcelona was home to a seafaring population that was isolated by boundaries assigned in the Middle Ages. Nonetheless, they experienced an individual revolution of sorts, which brought steam-powered factories. Between 1825 and 1850, the population of Barcelona nearly doubled, and approximately 200,000, while the geographic size of the city remained largely unchanged. This led to terrible conditions and much unrest, which in turn gave way to the perfect opportunity for change. Monturiol's dream was a direct result of all the challenges and changes that Barcelona faced. Monturiol had a deep passion for the rights and liberation of the working class population. He desired to give them liberation from the difficult and dangerous professions. As a seaside city, Monturiol was able to watch the working class people of Barcelona dive for coral, pearls, amber, and sponges. This was the perfect setting for what sparked his idea. It all started with a question, Monturiol writes. I asked myself, why, if ships can go on the surface, why couldn't there be ships that go under the surface of the water? Monturiol wasted no time in acting on this question, as he always sought to problem solve. The dreamer, with an uncommon mind, was further motivated by his desire to help those divers to obtain their resources with greater ease and safety. Monturiol was not the first person to attempt to engineer and use a submarine in order to navigate underwater. Almost 100 years before Monturiol's work, military missions were already being strategized with potential underwater navigation vessels. The earliest military use of such craft was documented in 1776 during the Revolutionary War. A watercraft called the Turtle, propelled by a hand crank, was developed in order to sneak up on a British warship. David Bushnell from Connecticut was the inventor and desired to attack a 64-gun ship in the New York harbor with explosives. The Turtle successfully moved underwater, but the mission itself was unsuccessful. Almost 100 years later, while Monturiol was developing his more complex submarine, the U.S. attempted to use another primitive underwater vessel in wartime tactics. In 1864, during the Civil War, Confederate troops put together a crude, hand-cranked vessel in an attempt to covertly attack a Union ship. This mission was somewhat successful in that the Confederates successfully sank the ship, but they also sunk themselves. While the Western world was developing technology for destruction, Monturiol was making important progress on the engineering and design of what we now know as a submarine to meet more genuine needs. It is surprising to consider how Monturiol's ideas developed in isolation and stayed primarily isolated. Monturiol had no means of communication with other parts of the world, and thus his ideas about underwater navigation had to evolve completely on their own. His only guidance were a few articles written by the French about underwater navigation. This truly identifies what a genius he was. Although many others had begun work on such a project, no one took the submarine development to the level that Monturiol was able to do, nearly single-handedly. Monturiol did not have a military mission to fulfill, and thus he had to find economic backing in a variety of places. Many people noted Monturiol's unwavering enthusiasm for his project, which drew shareholders to his money-hungry project. The Industrial School of Spain was the first supporter of Monturiol's engineering and design, and assisted him with some problem solving in several areas. They helped him install a steam engine in the submarine and created an efficient oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange system. With this support, in just 2 short years, Monturiol launched the Ichneumon in the summer of 1859, which was an overwhelming success. Monturiol's submarine allowed for the first mechanical underwater navigation. In the first summer of his Ichneumon, Monturiol completed more than 20 dives and made it to a depth of 20 meters. He was able to reach a cruising speed of 2 knots, a rather significant achievement since modern-day submarines generally cruise at speeds slower than 2 knots. While thrilled with his success, Monturiol remained unsatisfied and sought to solve secondary and tertiary problems to improve his technology. A second sub, Ichneumon 2, allowed for above and below water navigation. As Monturiol solved his engineering kinks, he planned for yet a third submarine, but the funding ran out and he was forced to end the project. The same conditions that allow the perfect opportunity to build a submarine also rendered the submarine forgettable. After Monturiol's economic devastation, it took 30 years for someone to engineer another twin-engine submarine. It took 65 years before another chemical engine was created to run a submarine. Furthermore, it was 100 years after Monturiol before a steam engine was used to power a submarine once again. With the revival of war times in the early 20th century, interest in submarines were also revived. Engineers attempt to use gasoline engines to power submarines. This was a little less effective method than Monturiol's because these vessels needed smokestack and air intakes. Over the course of 1914 to 1915, underwater navigation technology suddenly took off again and launched what we now know as the submarine of the modern world. As a tribute to Monturiol and the Ichneumon, a Swedish company built a modern vessel that mimics Monturiol's original design. The development and launch of the craft came in 2009, exactly 150 years after Monturiol's first submarine. The Ichneumon 3 is a lightweight, modern manned submarine that can dive to 1,200 meters, making it among the 10 deepest submerging submarines in present operation. The improvements include safety and lighter manned materials, which serve as upgrades consistent with Monturiol's original design. Monturiol's incredible work may not have had a lasting impact, but his work ethic, creativity, and desire to problem solve certainly should. He took a real-life need, posed a question, and persevered to find an answer. In some of the most difficult, yet perfect circumstances, Monturiol enthusiastically brought his ideas to life in order to improve the lives of others. While Monturiol lacks the proper recognition for his work, a study of his life and creation reveal that he was a genius.